There's a whole series of characteristics under this flexibility of researchers, and I really want to emphasize this because I don't think that this is easy work. I think sometimes the community groups think it's easier than it really is. And I think sometimes other researchers think that it's kind of, well, if you can't do theory, or theoretical research, then maybe you'll do community-based research. I think this demands a huge set of skills from people, and these are some of them. I think for one thing, you have to be very self-aware of your own limitations. Yeah, be aware of the skills that you can contribute, but also what are the limitations? I know that for myself, many times I've had to seek support or help from other faculty members who have skills that I simply don't have. In the case of Pinokian Hills Farms, it was, we really relied on our business department to help us out with some of the business analysis, some of the marketing skills. And we were really fortunate to find a woman in the community who also helped us when we had to do some financial forecasting. And nobody seemed to have, have the skills in the university to do that. So, you have to be very self-aware of what your capacity is. The other thing is that I think as a researcher working with a community group, most of the time the research itself is so all-consuming that one person can't do it. So you need people from the community who are going to take leadership roles within the research and be willing to develop their skills as researchers. You also need to have students who are interested in this kind of research, and so you have to put yourself in the role of a mentor and a teacher of research skills and sharing those research skills as well. Sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, you need to bring in experts at strategic points. Certainly with the Coalition for Algoma Passenger Trains, we realized that if they wanted to influence policy, which, trains are high-price, high-ticket items, and you need the federal government on board. They're big corporations, and so in order to influence them, they recognized that just doing our research wasn't going to be enough, that they also needed to be able to bring in a name that was going to carry the weight with some of the politicians. And one of the other things is that we've found very helpful is to have community advisory committees. So we develop a group of people from the community who will really give us advice. These are people that may be active in the community group, but may not be, may just be, have some wisdom that we feel can be shared with us, have a diverse group of people that can give you diverse opinions, so that you know how the whole community is going to respond to this initiative, or at least be better able to. So those have been very valuable to us as well. So some of the tentative conclusions that I've reached after thinking about this for a while and trying to put some of these ideas together is that we really need to rethink perhaps the curricula and the training for researchers when we want to prepare them for community-based research. Because I think that a combination of both research skills and community development skills are what is needed for community-based researchers. So when as an academic, that's certainly something that I'm thinking about is how can we make sure that that's being integrated into the curricula. The researchers who are working in community-based research need to appreciate that they need to learn from and engage with communities over the long term. So, if you're starting to do this work, if you're just starting to do this work, prepare yourself that it's not likely that you're going to be able to do this for 6 months and walk away from that community. The community is going to feel like they have some dibs on you. And they're going to have some expectations for you to continue to support them in their work. So think about that and think about, what kind of a commitment are you prepared to make and how long can that commitment last? In the social economy, to go back to those very first questions, I think that certainly it's a rich site for community-based research. I think that we can't walk away from this site because there's so much going on, and those communities really, you know, we can provide, universities can provide the support to social economy organizations and to those communities. There's a really valuable capacity that we can add to them, that we can support them in. So some of those, I guess, and finally, those challenges that are inherent in the social economy, you know, what Peter Hall was saying about diversity, that it's an informal group sometimes, they're emerging, they're localized. They actually, if we look at them in the right way, they can actually enhance our capacity to do community-based research, I think, because they're bringing it gives us an opportunity to explore things with them before everything is set in stone. Sometimes it's much harder to move an organization from, you know, something that historically they've done it this way for 50 years, and now you're trying to move them, you know, they want to move, but trying to pick up and move to a new way of doing things is really challenging. Whereas if it's a new group that's emerging and coming out of the passion and the interest that a group of people have, sometimes it's much easier to give them the research and say, well, you know, maybe this model will work better for you than that other model over there. So in some ways, those can be very synchronous, I guess, you know, in supporting one another. So that's kind of where I've come to. I still think there's a lot of thinking to go into these relationships, and a lot of learning to be done in the relationships. I think that certainly what's come out of it for me is that it's a really valuable way to combine the passion that I had for social transformation and community development and making the world a little better place with you know, doing research and you know, what I find to be very, very intellectually stimulating work. So, you know, it's a wonderful way of combining some interests that you know, two different parts of my life, but at the same time, I think that there's still lots that I have to learn about it. So, thank you for your attention. If you have questions, I'm happy to talk about them. Yes.
Well, I'm thinking of what I would need to know if I was a student today and wanted to be a researcher. And your suggestions makes me ask myself, and perhaps on behalf of some students, what is your background? What kind of learning and training have you achieved?
Well, I wound up, my work is, yeah. Oh, yes, thanks, Roger. I need to repeat this because they're recording it. So the question was, what's, you know, for a person that's learning this, what was my background and how did I come to these ideas, I guess. I worked for about 25 years in doing community development in communities. And then in the mid-1990s, and my work was, you know, I did not-for-profit housing, co-op housing. I did a lot of work around in the women's movement, around the creation of sexual assault care centers, transition homes, helped create a legal clinic, you know, a whole variety of different things. And began to feel in the mid-1990s that I wasn't doing my work as well as I could, that I needed to have more of a theoretical framework for the work that I was doing. And so I returned to school at that point, and I did my PhD. And my doctoral thesis in Sault Ste. Marie, it's a one-industry town, as many are in Northern Ontario. And so I was at that point in time, the workers at Algoma Steel had bought out the company. And so when I went back to school, that was what I did my thesis on, was looking at worker ownership and participation at Algoma Steel. And then that led me to teaching in the Community Economic and Social Development Program. So I had this combination. So I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, I think it's my combination of work experience and then school was a really good combination of things. And I think that it would be, when I see students who have that opportunity to go out and work in the communities in a way that that allows them to participate in the development itself as well as study it, that it's a wonderful combination of learning about both community development and research.
One thing I have found sometimes is a problem is when the research is written up from the university side, it's virtually unreadable at the community side.
Yeah.
You know, even the community economic development from Guelph to Waterloo, how do you get a researcher to cut through, I guess, academic snobbery, where you don't have to have a dictionary?
And it's actually academic requirements.
I know,
so for the students, and I think that that's one of the things that we do. Oh, sorry, so the question was, you're going to have to remind me every time, Roger. So the question was, how do we make the final reports be more available to the community and not be written in such academic language that it makes it impossible for the community to make use of it. And I think that's a very important question, because if the research is not useful to the community, then sort of you've certainly failed in the partnership. I think that there's many different ways that you can make the final research report useful to the community, and one is that you can write a separate report or part of a report. You can take part of the report and attach it to your academic report later, so that everyone knows that this is what went to the community and this is what was approved by the community. And then you can put it in the context of the literature review and so on when you need to do that for your to meet your academic requirements. Another example is the one that I think the Center for Cooperative Studies, and Roger had a leadership role in that, and I know that it came out of a relationship that the Center and Lou have had with the Diefenbaker Center for a long time, but actually doing a museum display. And Nora, of course, I know you were working hard on that as well. But a museum display so that it made it really accessible to the community. The whole display was, I'm not using the right word. I know display isn't the right word, but exhibit, thank you. The whole exhibit was based on the social economy research. And it's supposed to be accessible to people who, from 10 years of age and up, I understand. And the language is very, I think it's very plain language. But yes, I think it's just a crucial thing. There's a whole area of research that I've done some work in called public legal education, because I used to work in a legal clinic, and in public legal education, the whole idea is turning, legalese into plain language, so that people can use it and understand what their rights are. And it's not a difficult process. I mean, there's computer programs you can use to translate something from, a university or an academic level to a grade 10 level. So there's no reason that we can't do that, and we should be doing that. One of the things that we regularly do with ours is that we take it back, present it to the community, incorporate what the community's feedback is to us before we finalize the report. So if the community is asking us all kinds of questions and doesn't understand our terminology, then we incorporate that right into so if you have to use a term that is an unusual term or is very academic specific, then you know, you find that out when you do that presentation.